because already 10 minutes out of the time allotted to me, 10 minutes are over. Anyway, you know first of all, good morning to all of you. First time I am meeting you people. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Good morning, sir.
I hope you are coming from different universities, colleges in South India or North. I don't know. But anyway, it's a very good opportunity for me to meet you. Okay, we don't get this opportunity. Rarely we get this one after my retirement. Still, I have continued my academic this one. So Dr. Shakuntala and Malini, being my colleagues earlier students and then my colleagues, they invited me. I'm thankful to you, both madams, and also you people to attending this one. Okay, now let me start with the topic. Okay, nowadays we are exposed to, now we humans as well as the animals are exposed to various factors in the environment, external factors. It may be chemical, pollution, radiation, malnutrition, climatic change. You can add many more parameters to this one. We are exposed to this one. Of all these, this is the one, the stress. Which is personally, I feel this is the one which will not, nobody will escape from this one. It may be a younger one, adults or the old one, everyone, including the animals, we are exposed to this one. And another unique feature with this one is, say, for example, pesticide pollution or the other pollutions and all, not all people are exposed to that one. Only in that particular area, they are exposed to others are maybe safe. Similarly, radiation, malnutrition, etc., various things. But as far as this is concerned, no one can escape. Everyone is exposed to this condition. And after in day-to-day life, we use this term stress. We have to say this is because of the stress. Whatever problems are there, medical conditions, the people go, hey, this might have happened because of stress and all. And even in our general other common man, whenever we discuss, we use this word stress. But majority of us do not know what is meant by stress, what is happening in the body because of the stress. Being the biologists, you come from different disciplines, maybe animal science, plant science, etc. But common feature is the biological science. So how a physiological definition, or what is the physiological definition for the stress, and what physiological changes are taking place in the body because of the stress, and what are the implications of those changes? Briefly, I will try to explain you in my this lecture. Okay. One should know that stress is an inescapable fact of life. Nobody can avoid this one. One or other time of the life, we are exposed to this one. We undergo this condition. And we use this term stress, but we don't know exactly what it means. So if I ask what is stress, the simple physiological explanation or the definition we can take is stress is a state resulting from events of external or internal origin, real or imagined, that tend to affect the homeostatic state. It's a simple definition. If you ask a psychologist, their definition is slightly different, and we may not be able to fully appreciate that one. But being the biologist, we can easily understand the physiological explanation or the definition for the stress. First of all, we should know that it is a state in the body. It is a state. Means from some altered state. Alteration means from what state to what state alteration has taken place? From homeostatic state. What is homeostasis? Being students of biology, we have learned this homeostasis even at the pre-university level or +2 level. This concept was made very clear, and this is a very important concept in biology, that animals try to maintain relatively constant conditions in the body, that we call it as a homeostasis. That state is called as a homeostatic state. So there are a number of, there are many physiological parameters, like it may be body temperature, it may be pH of the body fluids, it may be the ionic composition, it may be blood pressure, it may be heart rate, it may be respiratory rate. All these physiological parameters are always kept under certain range. They don't deviate under homeostatic conditions. That is, the body tries to maintain a homeostatic state, the relatively constant conditions with reference to many physiological parameters. If the external changes are there in the external environment, they influence the internal factors, and the body has a compensatory changes for that one to maintain this homeostatic state. Okay, if you know this homeostatic state, that is disturbed. What is happening under the stress is that homeostatic state is disturbed because of the events or stimuli. This stimuli may be external one, maybe the external one, or internal one also. Internal also, there are many infections and other things they happen. They also affect the homeostatic state. So that time there is alteration from this normal steady state condition to altered state. We call it as a stress. Okay, it's more interesting thing is these stimuli or the events may be real, means perceived. The body perceives these changes, so that the physiological changes are there. More interesting is the imagined one. Stress is a condition which can happen because of certain imaginations. Say, for example, you have caught you have quarreled with a person, maybe somebody, for some reason, maybe a colleague, maybe within the house, or a neighbor, or somewhere, or parking place problems, such things. You have quarreled with somebody. Some altercations. Quarrel means some altercations have taken place. That time you have entered into a state of state where your BP is raised, you are angry, respiratory rate increases, many changes, physiological changes take place. And after a month or so, after a week or so, if you sit down, calm and quiet, you are at your home. But if you recollect that condition, what has happened that day, same physiological changes they repeat in the body. So this is the imagined one. That's why I'm telling you this is an interesting one. Most of us suffer from this one. We simply recollect what has happened 10 years back, what has happened 5 years back, personal things, other things. Because of that, the body enters into the state of stress. So what is stress? It is a state, a deviation from the homeostatic condition because of the certain stimuli, maybe of external or internal origin. Okay, this should be clear to you. Now, here, I have made you clear what is stress. Related to this, two more terms have to be clearly understood. One is a stressor or stressors. Stressor is a singular. Stressors is a plural. What is a stressor? Stimuli that challenge the homeostasis are called as stressors. And stress response. What is stress response? Body's response to stress. Means there is altered state. In this altered state, what physiological responses are there? Changes are there. That is called as a body's response. Physiological response. Of course, there are behavioral responses also. So the stress not only affects the physiological parameters, but also behavior. So behavioral responses are there. Physiological responses are. Put together, these are called as a stress responses. Okay. Okay, let us have a very briefly how this field originated. Who was a pioneer in this field? Stille pioneered this field. He was a student of biology. He was a student of animal science. He was asked to do some experiment with the rats. While experimenting with this, he comes across with a wonderful concept. He experiences certain things and he conducts certain experiments and he comes out with a wonderful concept. Later on, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for his contributions in this in this field called as a stress research. According to him, stress is non-specific stereotypic responses to adverse conditions. Whenever body faces adverse conditions, the body shows the responses, and such responses are non-specific. Means suppose if you have exposed a rat to heat or to cold or to some infection or to some other conditions, adverse conditions, the responses, physiological responses seen are non-specific. Means the one which change has taken for the heat will not change if the animal is exposed to the cold. That's because the responses are non-specific. Their responses are the same. Whatever may be the stimuli, responses are the same. So he described the stress like this. Okay. Then he comes out with a concept called as a general adaptation syndrome. I will not go into details of that one. It will take me a lot of time to explain that one. And later on, this was further expanded by others. Important contribution was from the Christian. He showed the relationship between the stressors and the pituitary adrenal glands. He showed that the stress responses are because of the activation of the pituitary and the adrenal glands. It may be a bit difficult for the people who are coming from the plant science. The endocrine glands are there in the body. There are various types of glands, out of which the pituitary is the one which is controlling many endocrine glands. Adrenal gland is a very major gland. So this responds to the stress. So he showed the relationship between the activation of the adrenal gland and the stress condition. That was his contribution. Since then, because of these earlier contributions, 37, 40, 50s and all, there is a growing awareness about the studies on the stress, what we call it as a stress physiology or stress research. What for? Why the people are studying throughout the globe? People are studying using animal models, and some people are conducting the human studies also. That is population studies. What for? What for they are studying? The objective is to alleviate the negative health implications of the stress. Nowadays, most of these chronic conditions, what we observe in the society, faced by the humans, it may be a diabetes mellitus, it may be a blood pressure, it may be others. These are all increasing. Even the younger generation is exposed to, is having the diabetes and blood pressure, etc. Earlier, we used to hear means only those who are above 50 plus, 60 plus people used to get. That's why it was called as the adult onset of diabetes. Children is different. That's type 1. Type 2 is known as the adult onset of diabetes because it used to happen after 50. Nowadays, even the younger generation, 25, 30 years, they are becoming diabetic. They show hypertension. So all these conditions are increasing. So, and what the people think, the medical science and the basic science, they think is these may be because of the influence of the stress. And this stress may be acute or chronic. These two types. There are two types. Acute means high intense, maybe for a short duration. Chronic means it may be low in intensity, but it's a long-term one. It is actually the chronic stress which is having a negative health implications. Mechanism means whenever the animals face a difficult emergency situation. Say, for example, a small animal is persuaded by a big animal, its predator, it has to escape. At that time, it shows the responses which are due to that demand on the body, that it has to run away, it has to escape. That is the flying mechanism. If two animals are of the equal strength or face, they will fight out the situation. So both, whether you fight with the situation or you escape from the situation, you need a lot of energy, you need a lot of changes in the body, and that is all because of this acute stress impact. on the body. And usually this exists for a short duration, and the body will return to normalcy after a short duration. So that there is no health implication, much health implication with acute one. But it's a chronic one. It is more of our creation. It is more of our creation. Because of this one, many people are in our society are suffering from this chronic stress. Okay, these stressors are classified as physical and psychological. Physical, you can understand those who are having a direct impact, like cold, heat, infection, toxic substances, etc. These are the physical stressors. More dangerous ones are the psychological stressors. Failure to achieve goals, death of loved ones, job demands. These are all psychological stressors. Again, there may be sub-classification, subtypes, financial problems, dominance. Means this dominance may be at home or at office or at workplace. Somebody is dominating over the others. So this subordinate fellow always feels some disturbance in the body. So that is a state of stress. Hierarchy. In our education system also there is a hierarchy. There is a vice chancellor, registrar, chairman, like that. There is a hierarchy. This hierarchy also creates some problems, insult, loss of esteem. These are all the stressors. Workplace problems, insufficient pay, uneasy relationship with the co-workers. These are the playing nowadays. Most of the people are facing these things. This uneasy relationship with the co-workers, maybe because of the rat race, maybe because of the cutthroat competition. Somehow you achieve a promotion, somehow you do go ahead of your colleagues. So that times others have some heartburns. Like that, these are the ones workplace problems are causing. Even the parking place, a simple thing like a parking place problems are also creating a state of stress, because every day we are exposed to this. You come and you want to go in a marketplace or any other place. You have a car or a scooter. You want to park it. You don't have a space. So there it leads to altercations. It leads to exchange of words or other things. They create mental problems. So whole day we have been exposed to this one. These are mostly called as a life stressors. Means these are arising out of our life situations. That's why. The financial problems, for example, animals do not have financial problems. It's only the human beings which are having the animal financial problems. It is our own creation. If we enter into the lot of debt, we only suffer. So like that, our own creations, we are exposed to the chronic stress. Okay, come to the stress response. How the body responds to this, whichever may be the stress factor. It may be a physical one and psychological one, but the psychological ones are the more powerful. They induce more significant changes in the physiology of the body. Variety of physiological parameters are affected. It may be metabolic changes, cardiovascular changes, there are gastrointestinal changes, growth and repair are affected, immune system is affected, reproductive system is affected, nervous system is affected. No system is spared. Almost all systems are influenced by this one. And there may be elevation certain, acceleration or elevation certain processes. There will be separation of the others. Okay. Yeah, this is more, it's better to understand here. You can see there are metabolic changes. There may be certain metabolic processes are stimulated. There is an increase and certain are suppressed. Endocrine system, some hormones are secreted more, some are less. Reproduction is suppressed. Immunity is suppressed. Cardiovascular system gets elevated, more heartbeat, more blood pressure, etc. So these are the few changes I have shown. Along with many changes are taking place. And more interestingly, all are taking place simultaneously. There is the heart changes, there are the reproductive changes, there are immunological changes, there are other changes. So all are happening at a time whenever the body is exposed to stressors. How it is possible? At a time, how it is triggered? Is there any single switch to put on to all these processes? Yes, this is possible by the it is possible by the two communicating systems in the body. There are two systems. One is the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And another type of communicating system is endocrine system or the chemical system. They communicate between the different parts of the body. They get the message from the brain and they send the message to the different parts of the body. This representation shows us how the stress is at a time causing many changes. If it is perceived, it is the brain which perceives. There are centers called as higher centers of the brain. They perceive this stress, means the changes in the environment, internal or external environment. So when it perceives, it releases several signals. For example, the limbic system, the cortex of the brain, releases norepinephrine, a hormone, through the, actually it is not through the blood, it's a neurochemical. This is through the sympathetic neurons. They enter into the different tissues. This norepinephrine induces flight and fight reaction. And another signal is the CRH, is the corticotrophin releasing hormone that ultimately causes the increased secretion of cortisol from the adrenal cortex. So this and there is one more signal here, the sympathetic neurons, through which this norepinephrine stimulates the adrenal medulla to secrete another hormone called as a epinephrine or adrenaline. This is noradrenaline. This is adrenaline. So this cortisol and the adrenaline together, they elevate the metabolic processes, energy, metabolism, and also bring about the cardiovascular activation. So these changes are taking place simultaneously when the stress is positive. What for? Why the body shows these changes? The logic here is these are the adaptive changes to cope up with the altered homeostatic state. The body, there is alteration in the state, homeostatic state. So you have to cope up with those changes. That's why these physiological responses are seen in the body. Certain processes are elevated, stimulated, others are suppressed. Those which are not for immediate need, such processes are suppressed. For example, reproduction. When the animal is facing a danger, there is no meaning in reproduction. That's why reproductive processes are suppressed. Like that, okay, now we shall examine one by one the different systems, how they respond to the stress. As far as gastrointestinal responses are concerned, suppression of appetite. The first thing what happens is many times we experience this, that because of certain factors, we experience certain situations. So at that time, there is complete suppression of appetite. Don't feel like eating. So this is a behavioral change induced by the hormone CRH. You have seen in the brain, it secretes the CRH. The hypothalamus secretes the CRH. That is the one which causes this one. And also, simultaneously, there is an inhibition of GI tract enzymes. Enzymes secretion is inhibited and peristalsis is inhibited by, this is because of the sympathetic nervous system. Dry mouth is another one. And also, this stress promotes formation of peptic ulcers. So this is one of the major findings earlier, even from the time of the Seeley, that the rats which were exposed to stress were showing the peptic ulcers. So these are all the taking place in the gastrointestinal system. Okay, this I want to skip. There is no need for this one. Okay. The most crucial with reference to the health impact is the metabolic changes. I hope you know what is the intermediary metabolism. The metabolism of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and these are interlinked. This, you have studied the Krebs cycle and other metabolic pathways and all. These are interlinked. The protein, prior carbohydrate, and lipid metabolic pathways are interlinked. This is the intermediary metabolism. Generally, and this is under the hormonal control. Several hormones, they regulate this intermediary metabolism, the reactions taking place there. If that hormonal balance is affected, if there is an imbalance, there are changes, metabolic alterations will be there. Okay. Normally, what happens under normal condition, homeostatic condition, it is the glucose which is used for metabolism. For energy purpose, it is always the carbohydrate is used, that is the glucose is used. And excess of the lipids are converted to fat and stored in the adipose tissue. Proteins are utilized for various purposes. They are required for synthetic purpose. They are required for many muscle building, so many other things. They are not used for metabolic processes. Metabolic means for energy release, they are not used. Proteins means amino acids. But under stress conditions, what happens because of this hormonal secretions, we have seen that adrenal corticosteroids and adrenal medullary hormones, they bring change in this metabolic pathway. So from synthetic process to the lytic process, there is a slight shift. That is, for example, the carbohydrate, glycogenolysis, means the splitting of glycogen. The glycogen is split, and this is under the influence of adrenaline, which I have shown in the picture, that is taken from that is released from the adrenal medulla. It reaches the liver and causes the glycogenolysis so that glucose is formed. Much of glucose enters the blood. And similarly, same hormone also causes lipolysis, means in the adipose tissue, lipids are split, lysed, to give rise to glycerol and free fatty acids, so that these they enter the circulation. From there, they are taken as a substrate for a process called as gluconeogenesis. What is gluconeogenesis? Gluconeogenesis is the synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources, not from the carbohydrates, from the non-carbohydrate sources is called as a gluconeogenesis. It is a very common thing. The biochemistry people know this. In fact, they may be knowing better than me how the gluconeogenesis takes place, under what condition takes place, etc. So here, generally, these lipids are stored as adipose in the adipose tissue, and only under the conditions, certain conditions, fatty acids are used for the metabolism. But what is happening here is these are diverted towards the synthesis of glucose, so that glucose is formed. And proteolysis, usually there is a protein synthesis under normal homeostatic regulation. So proteins are synthesized from the amino acids, but here there is splitting of the protein so that amino acids are formed. Among the amino acids, there are certain amino acids called as a gluconeogenic amino acids. Not all. There are a few. Such amino acids are taken for the gluconeogenesis. So in this pathway also the glucose is formed. So the net result is lot of glucose is formed in the body under the stressful conditions. So what would be the next net result because of this increased glucose formation? Okay, this gives you the gluconeogenic pathway. You can see normally what happens is glucose is utilized in the glycolytic process. From the glucose, pyruvate is formed, which enters the Krebs cycle. But here, what is happening? The substrates for gluconeogenic amino acids like alanine, lactate, glycerol, these are enter at different stages for the gluconeogenesis. Alanine is converted to pyruvate, lactate is converted to pyruvate. Of course, not in a single step, there may be others. And these 4 important enzymes I have shown here, These are called as the gluconeogenic enzymes. And these are the enzymes which are under the control of glucocorticoid that I told you, the cortisol. They are under the control of the expression of these genes is influenced by the glucocorticoid. Under the presence of glucocorticoid, high level of glucocorticoids, more of these enzymes are formed so that the gluconeogenic pathway is triggered. Okay, so this is how the glucose is formed. Now, what would be the net result? From glycogen, the glucose is formed. From lipids and proteins also, the net result is the increased blood glucose levels in the body. Okay, let it be there. Glucose is anyway needed for the energy. Let it be there. But it has a serious implication that in case of acute effect, means I told you the acute stress, this is increased availability of the fuel for energy, because in the acute stress, the animal has to escape the emergency situation, a dangerous situation. It has to escape from a predator. It has to escape from an enemy, or it has to fight out a situation. For such thing, the energy is needed. For that, it's okay. Glucose is formed temporarily and that is utilized. But the problem is with the chronic stress. So this continued, chronic means long term, months, years. So the chronic increase in the glucose levels might lead to the diabetes, which may also lead to the muscle atrophy, because continuously the proteins are degraded for formation of the glucose in the gluconeogenic pathway, so that the muscle atrophy can take place because the proteins are lost. The major content of the muscles is the protein. So if the proteins are lost, there will be muscle decrease in the muscle density. Okay. So now we also conducted some study in this regard, not with the human studies. It is with the regard to the animal models, which has contributed to the already existing knowledge of stress balance. Our study was focused on all different types of metabolic pathways with reference to the glucose. What is happening here is it showed that the increase in the gluconeogenesis, as already shown, decrease in the glycolysis, decrease in the flow of substrate to the Krebs cycle. Overall result was a hyperglycemia. How we found hyperglycemia? By measuring the blood glucose levels. So the importance of this study was, whatever I have told earlier, hyperglycemia, etc., was already there. But here, important thing is what we can see here is this increase in the glucose levels continues even for the long term. The animal will not get habituated to these stress conditions and will not return to the normalcy. As long as the animal is exposed to the stress, it goes on showing the hyperglycemic response. That is, you can see this is the glucose level of the rats exposed to the stress, whereas this is in case of a normal rat. Fasting blood glucose level, 6 months, 24 weeks. This is a very cumbersome experiment, a lot of patience and commitment required for measuring the blood glucose levels at weekly intervals. Come to the lab early morning at 6 o'clock to measure the blood glucose levels. So this shows that even it continues for a long term, the glucose remains higher levels. Then we also showed that whether the recovery can take place if the animal is freed of the stress exposure, means it is not further exposed to the stress. Say, for example, 2 weeks it is exposed, then there is no stress. 4 weeks it is exposed, then there is no stress. So what would be the result? Whether immediately it can come to the normalcy? No, it will not come to the normalcy. It takes nearly 12 to 14 weeks to come back to the normalcy after withdrawing the stressors. So this is how the stress response remains in the body. This is a very important finding, that the impact is so that this without exposing, even the normal rats are normal, feeding normally, even then the blood glucose levels remain high for a long term. That is the our finding. And then also we showed the changes in the lipid metabolism. You can see the cholesterol, LDL, and this is, I think, it's unable to, yeah, this is a triglyceride. Then one is the HDL. HDL shows the reverse, this one. Cholesterol, you can see 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 24 weeks of stress. It goes on increasing. LDL goes on increasing. LDL is a low density lipoproteins. Triglyceride goes on increasing. So these are the control rats, these two types of controls here. You can see this is the normal levels. These are the elevated levels. Just like a staircase, you can see as the duration of the exposure increases, there is an increase in the lipid levels. The bad cholesterol, what we call it as a bad cholesterol, there is an increase, and there is a decrease in the good cholesterol. You can see this is the one. This is the one. Decrease. So this is increase and this is the decrease. What should not happen, that is happening under the stress conditions. Okay. What is the impact of this one? If there is elevated lipid levels in the body, a rat is being exposed to stress only for an hour or so within a day, then it is free. Then it is normally it is fed, it is provided all the conditions, comfortable conditions. Even then it is showing the changes. So what I am going to tell here is, even though all other conditions are normal, but one particular factor which is causing the disturbance, if that is there, these changes are taking place. So ultimately, if it is long term, in long term, what can happen? For rat, which lives about maximum for 2.5 years, this 24 weeks is very long term for them, for 6 months. Almost it's 1/3 of its lifetime. 6 months to 1.5 to 2 years, 2.5 years they live. So long-term exposure, increase in the LDL levels and other bad cholesterol, what would be the impact? You can see here, this is the normal blood vessel. These are the 3 divisions of the blood vessel, 1, 2, 3, AD, ME, and EN. That is adventitia, endothelium, and this one is the media. These are the 3 layers. You can see the thickness. This is the control one. And you compare this one with this thickness. This is 24 week stress exposed rat. These are under the same magnification. So to fool the people, one can show in the low magnification another picture of the same one in the higher magnification, show larger one. This can happen, but here it is not like that. They are under the same magnification. Stressed rats, you can see how much is increase in the this blood vessel. What for? What has happened here is the accumulation of fat. Accumulation of fat has taken place here. And this shows the higher magnification picture, what type of accumulation can take place. There is a formation of the foam cells. Foam cells are the ones these are the cells which engulf the lipids and they go on bulging. They go on increasing in the size. These are called as the foam cells. And this is the foam cell which can block the arteries. So you can see it's very small space left for the circulation. So what we call it is 70% block, 80% block, 90% block. It is all happening because of this. Okay. So this is the important thing to be noticed here is the animals were not given any fat diet. Animals were not exposed to any other changed conditions. Animals were only stressed for a short duration in a day, and rest of the day they were normal. Even then, there was a atherosclerotic development. This is called as a atherosclerotic development. The important contribution here is the stress alone can cause atherosclerotic development in the blood vessels. So this was the major finding there. Because of this, was published in a very good journal, international journal, and it has seen more than 50 citations. So as far as the metabolic changes are concerned, what you should know is the major change is the hyperglycemia, and towards the from synthetic to the lytic activity is the change because of the hormonal imbalance. Then cardiovascular system, there is an increased heart rate, cardiac output, and the blood volume. So under the active acute stress, that is adaptive in nature, but under chronic stress, there is a hypertension, development of hypertension, which may ultimately lead to atherosclerosis. As high lipid content can lead to the atherosclerosis, the hypertension can also lead to this one. There are a combination of the factors. It's not lipid levels alone. Hypertension, the lipid levels, oxidative stress, all these put together, they are causing the this. Okay. So this may lead to the heart attacks. Growth, as far as growth is concerned, so growth is suppressed because of the inhibition of growth stimulating hormones and the factors under stressful condition. If this happens during the childhood, dwarfism may result. That's so serious. And in case of the adults, there is a loss of bone density and the muscle density because of the inhibition of the growth and repair. As far as immune responses are concerned, immunity, you know what is immunity? It is the body's defense to the invading microorganisms or any foreign substances that neutralize them. Body shows the immune response. Antibodies are formed. There is a cellular and humoral immunity. Different types of strategies it uses to neutralize the foreign particles entering into the body, maybe virus, bacteria, other particles. So the impact of stress is so much that the body loses its ability to face the situations. That is to deal with the infections, deal with the other anything entering into the body. Examples here are stress in workplace increases susceptibility to infections. That is the illness due to the infections. And students have more illness and increased BP during the examination period. All other time, during the rest of the year, they are okay. But only during the examination time, there is a illness. We see this many times. It happens. In many families, it happens. It is because the buildup of pressure on the body, on the student, that he has to perform well. He has to perform well. There is pressure from the parents, pressure from the teachers, pressure from the peer group. So because of this one, the body, even for the slight infections, the body may not be able to fight it out, because we through the water, through the air, through the food, many microbes enter our body. Unless there is a strong defense, we cannot combat with these infections. So if there is a compromise in the immune system, the body loses its ability for the defense. Similarly, stress in workplace can also cause this one. Divorce or people with few social relationships. This is more important. Divorce are very rare things, but few social relations. We see many people with few social relationships. They suffer repeatedly. They become sick because of the infections. What is happening internally is the compromised immunity. This is because of the various reasons that the stress-related hormone, that is the corticosterone, glucocorticoid or cortisol or the glucocorticoid. Glucocorticoid is a general term. Cortisol is a particular glucocorticoid. Okay. That is in case of the humans. That is causing degradation of the lymphocytes. Production of the antibodies is inhibited. Prevents the formation of the new lymphocytes. So this is what is happening. Even our study also showed there is a decrease in the leukocyte count. More serious is the bone marrow cells, which are the source of these cells, the immune cells, the leukocytes, that even there is a loss of these bone marrow cells. which are the progenitors of these RBCs and the WBCs. Here, consider the WBC. The count is decreased. Why the count is decreased? We looked into the bone marrow. There is a decrease in the bone marrow cells also because of this stressful condition. What has happened there is, you can see in this picture, this is in case of the normal rat bone marrow sample, where you can see a number of these green fluorescence showing cells. This is the fluorescent staining. You can see green fluorescence means the normal healthy cells. The red means the dead ones, the apoptotic ones. So here in the stress condition, you can see more number of red cells, the more number of orange color emitting cells, fluorescence. You can see this as the duration increases, the number of these cells also increase. The apoptotic cells increase. So the net result is the decrease in the WBC. Okay. So we have seen three important systems. There's a metabolic change, cardiovascular changes, and the this immune system that they are suppressed. Cardiovascular is elevation, there is increase in the heart rate, etc. There may be atherosclerotic development. There is altered metabolic pathway leading to the hyperglycemia, which might lead to the diabetic condition. Okay, now a recent study which is reported recently means a year back, that 2023 in Nature, they conducted studies on animal models. It's a review consolidating the work on the animal models as well as the human studies, epidemiological studies on the humans. The gist of that review is that this reveals that the likelihood of developing clinical conditions, namely the diabetes mellitus and the hepatic steatosis, is increased in individuals with adverse childhood experiences or long-term or severe stress at workplace or personal life. So this is their major finding based on the number of studies conducted. Review, he concludes like this. That is, there is a likelihood of developing clinical condition like diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus, usually we call it as popularly call it as sugar. Earlier also I referred there is hyperglycemic response. This hyperglycemia, a consistent hyperglycemia for a long period can cause an insulin resistance, and insulin resistance leads to the diabetic condition. Majority of the adult diabetes is because of the insulin resistance. It is not because of the insulin deficiency. Insulin deficiency in case of the type 1 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, main cause is the insulin resistance. And the stress is the factor which is causing the insulin resistance. What is the pathway? It causes the hyperglycemia, and consistent exposure to the glucose levels. Very high glucose levels, consistent exposure can cause insulin resistance. What do you mean by insulin resistance? Insulin resistance means though insulin is present, the cell is unable to respond to the insulin. You know what is the role of insulin? Insulin is very much essential to push the glucose from the blood into the cells. Transport of glucose from the circulation into the cell, insulin is needed. If insulin is not there or insulin is not acting properly, the glucose cannot enter the cell. If the glucose cannot enter the cell is starved of the fuel. Cell is starved of fuel, it cannot function properly. This is what happens during the diabetic condition, and this clinical condition develops because of the stress that is, you can see here the adverse childhood experiences. The child, as a child, man has experienced the adverse conditions, stressful conditions. As an adult, he is facing this diabetic condition. So this can, even after long term, this can affect. Or a person is facing a severe stress at workplace, or exposed to stress for a long period in personal life or workplace. So these are the ones which are leading to the clinical conditions such as the diabetes and hepatic steatosis, means the fatty liver. You might have heard a very popular term is the fatty liver, accumulation of fats in the liver. That in turn can lead to many other effects. So this is the one. And generally, these conditions, that is the hepatic steatosis and the diabetes, these are associated with other conditions due to the stress. That is, mental health disorders may be there, cardiovascular disorders may be there, and increased susceptibility to the infections, which you have referred already, that he is consolidating here. So the long-term exposures can cause these things. Okay, this is as far as the parameters are concerned. Similarly, stress can also cause compromise in the antioxidant status. The oxidative stress can result because of the stress, because there is a elevated metabolic pathways, certain pathways are elevated. Because of that, the reactive oxygen species are formed, and reactive oxygen species, they act on the cells, and they damage the proteins, they damage the lipids. This is how they affect the cells. What we put together, this is called as an oxidative stress. So stress can lead to the oxidative stress, and this oxidative stress is the cause for many disease conditions. Okay, our study also shown there is a decrease in the activities of those enzymes which are involved in the antioxidant defense. Body has an ability to face this. As we have ability to face the infections, body has the ability to face this reactive oxygen species by this antioxidant system. This antioxidant system consists of the enzymes as well as non-enzymic chemicals. So those are the vitamin C, for example, that is used as an antioxidant in the body. And there are several enzymes like SOD, C8, AGPX, etc. These enzymes, they get elevated, the activity gets elevated whenever there is ROS, overproduction of ROS, they neutralize them. So that the ROS effect, the oxidative stress is controlled. These ROS are under physiological conditions, under normal production, they are useful to the body. They are required for many processes. But the problem is there only when they become excess. Too much of oxidative stress is deleterious to the body. Okay. This also shows the oxidative stress. Reproductive responses. This is also much prevailing in our society, and unfortunately, this condition is increasing in the youngsters nowadays. Earlier, it was reported that the physical dangers such as military threats, periods of prolonged exertion, sleep deprivation, these are all lower the testosterone levels. What happens if the testosterone levels are lowered? The sex drive is decreased. The person will not have any interest in the sex. So this is how it is affecting the reproduction. Psychological stress such as constant vigilance also reduces the testosterone levels. Severe stress may interfere with the reproductive cycle in the women. Many women suffer this one, amenorrhea. What we call it as a amenorrhea. That is, they don't show the cycles. They don't show the normal cycles, usually which repeats in every 28 days. Normally, it may be 1 or 2 days this side or that side. So that is normally happens. That cycle repeats. But many women who undergo these stressful conditions do not show this cycle. Do not show, there is a suppression. This is called as an amenorrheic condition because of the emotional stress. And this may even lead to the infertility. In case of the males as well as in case of the females, this can lead to infertility. Many factors, emotional, physical, life stressors, they all cause the immunity. So this infertility. We conducted a long-term experiment. What is happening actually? Why the infertility should result? This is in a rat experiment. You can see the long-term exposed rat. There is a complete degeneration of the testicular cells here. This is high magnification, and this is the and also in case of the females, also there is a suppression of reproduction, the number of reproductive cycles are reduced. The reproductive lifespan of the female is reduced because of the conditions. Okay, and most significant finding in our study was the occurrence of polycystic ovary due to the stress. Nowadays, in the society, many girls, many young women are affected by this. Many conditions, it may be a nutritional factor, it may be other factors, they are causing a hormonal imbalance, and that result in a condition called as PCO. PCO is a polycystic ovarian condition. What happens is there is a development of cysts in the ovary, so that there is no normal ovulation, there is a fertility is affected. So this is increasing in the human population. This is increasing. Our study clearly shows that the long-term exposure alone can cause the polycystic ovarian condition. Okay. So this is because of the suppression of the reproductive hormones. But and even there is a influence on aging. The aging process is accelerated. Early senescence. That is advancement. It means that a 40 years man can look like a 50 years man. Or a 40 years woman can look like a 50 years woman. It is because of the advanced aging. This is also due to the exposure to the stressors. This actually, there's an experiment conducted in women by Blackburn and his colleagues. Here, they showed that mothers who were exposed to chronic stress because of their children were chronically ill. Many mothers, 39 mothers were selected. All of them had a child with some problems, means illness, chronic illness. And control mothers did not have such a problem. They are free. So here they could they analyze the different parameters here. All parameters show that there is an advanced aging. That is, the extent of shortening was equal to 10 years of additional aging. That's what I told you. A 40 years woman can look like a 50 years woman. It is because of the exposure to these conditions. And this condition, the gray hair, is also a condition which is seen nowadays in the society. Early aging, even people with 25 years, 30 years, etc., they are showing the gray hair. This is also because of stress, because the stress hormone, the glucocorticoid, that is affecting the cells which are secreting the melanin. Melanin is the pigment which imparts color to the hair. Melanin pigment, which may be a dark one or slightly brown, whatever the color of the hair, the melanin is responsible for that. This is secreted by the cells near the hair follicles. Those cells, they undergo degeneration. They degenerate because of the glucocorticoids. When the melanin cells are degenerated, melanin is not there, so the graying of the hair results. And this can happen at any stage because of the continuous exposure. Okay, this is in the nutshell, the chronic stress effects: loss of appetite, impaired growth, increased BP, heartbeat, metabolic alterations like diabetes, loss of immunity, inhibition of reproductive cycles, advanced aging. All these may happen, and person to person this may differ because of their genetic constitution, because of the type of the stressors they are faced, the type of the situation they are faced. Not that a single person will undergo all these things. That depends on the person to person. So now I think you have listened to me. This was only a one-way. This one. If you have any questions, you can ask me before I pass on to the next part of this one. Shortly, I will complete that one. If you have this, what I have explained here is the established concepts in stress biology. In what way what are the stressors and different types of the stressors, and what is the acute stress and what is the chronic stress, and what are the implications of the chronic stress. Acute stress is adaptive in nature. Survival of the animal is very much important for survival of the animals. Acute stress is very much important. Unless they show acute stress, they cannot survive. As far as chronic stress is concerned, it is our own creation. Whatever metabolic alterations, whatever cardiovascular alterations taking place because of the chronic stress, which I have explained.